Welcome to the podcast of the impossible. I'm Peter Wood, and my guest today is a repeat guest to the podcast. We are talking about Elkton Magic and a very special announcement. Someone who's going to be coming there in June. I think you know who's coming there in June, and I'm really excited to share all about it. I'm talking today with Jobeth Bowers, a.k.a. Judge Mentalist. All right. Welcome back to the podcast of the impossible. It's good to have you.
Well, it's good to be back. Thank you for, thank you for keeping this thing going. It's always fun to have something else in my podcast rotation. So
awesome. No, yeah, I appreciate it. It's been fun for me because I'm genuinely asking questions to friends and buddies who usually I don't know the answer to the question, which is always fun. Sometimes we'll do a leading because we've got something we have to talk about. But in general, I love I'm learning a bunch of stuff about people who are coming on the program who I thought I knew. So it's really awesome. And I guess we should mention this particular episode. We're going to sort of simulcast this. We're sending this out not only as a podcast of the impossible, but you've also been chatting with a bunch of performers who are going to be coming to Elkton in the future.
Yep.
And I guess for folks who haven't, I'm sure many listeners have listened to us chat about this before, but you run something up in the top right corner of Maryland, like I like to say, called Elkton Magic. And do you want to just sort of give the 20,000 view version of what that is?
Absolutely. So the brief rundown is, in the genesis of this is there was a guy a couple of years ago running, actually pre-pandemic, running a small community theater, and I approached him and I said, "Hey, you should you're not doing something every night. So you should book magicians in here maybe once a month." And his response, which is kind of my favorite response, and it gets me into trouble with my wife because it has me taking on too many things all the time, is, "You should book magicians here." And I said, "Okay."
Right.
So that started and stopped before it started with the pandemic. We were supposed to have some acts in here for around that time. And, we all experienced that together.
Sure.
Some of us in different fashions of together than others, but so we really got our start back in November of 2021.
Right.
So we were in a smaller venue, had about 70 seats. So we were doing weekend shows where a performer would come in and do a Friday, Saturday, or a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, depending on who they were and the anticipated draw. Most of the people that we had there on stage had either been on Penn and Teller's Fool Us, or the head writer for Penn and Teller's Fool Us,
right,
or AGT, or Masters of Illusion, or some combination of the two. I mean, we've had greats like Smoothini, Peter Wood. Maybe your listeners have heard of him.
Maybe.
We had Mario the Maker Magician, and Matt Donnelly, as I subtly referenced with the head writer of Fool Us. So it was really great. The building we were in sold. So that community theater was kind of in limbo, still sort of is, although they have found their new home. They have not officially opened back up yet. We linked up basically with a restaurant here also in Elkton that has a large banquet hall. So now we are doing shows there monthly, just one night, because we have seating for 168.
Yeah.
So at least now, as we build this audience, and it's a business that isn't going anywhere, so we don't have to worry about, the building sold,
right.
You're homeless again. But as this interest grows, we're doing what I call the big stage show there once a month. But we've been approached by a whole bunch of other entities around the county to do other things. So there's a show coming up that we're part of that's going to be at a moose lodge. We did something interesting and experimental last week, actually. Well, from the time that this airs, probably close to a month ago, where it was an open mic type of format. So it was more of a variety show, all with magicians. Now, this was not like when you think of an open mic, you think of it probably almost like karaoke, where you show up and sign up. We had preset the lineup. We had determined what everybody was doing ahead of time, and we structured it so that we had some flow to it. But the thing that we did that was interesting and unique, and I think beneficial both for the performers and super fun and immersive for the audience, is that somebody would come up, they would do, 8 to 10 minutes, whatever. And it was, pre-disclosed. This is, you might be getting some works in progress, or somebody might want to put a new twist on something.
Right.
You may not be seeing fully polished acts, but then while people were tearing down and setting up for the next performer, a Q&A type of session with the audience and the performer.
Mm.
What were you thinking? What made sense? What didn't make sense? What did you like? What did you not like? And that was the part of it for me that was like, let's see how this goes. And it was great. I mean, the performers got great feedback. I think that the audience really loved the immersive nature, because in these shows, it's normally you show up, you set up, the host or MC introduces you, you do your thing, you pack up, you go home, the audience goes home, and that's
Right.
it.
Right.
So, you can tell, and there's a lot of great performers out there that, record all their shows, or record, like Carissa Hendricks, for example. If she can't record anything else, she's recording the audio
Right.
so that she can track the reactions and the responses from the audience, especially when she's trying out new stuff. Was the reaction where I anticipated it being? Did that joke that I think, because you're there, you're on stage, you're in the zone.
Yep.
You're not, you are reacting to the reactions, but you're not necessarily always 100% tuned in, and really thinking that somebody hit. There have been times where I thought that I was totally flat in performances, and went back and watched the video and listened to the reaction. I'm like, no, this is, they did, okay.
Sure.
The only person who didn't like it that night was me.
Yeah, no, I've definitely experienced that, where on both ends. I mean, either feeling like, oh, they went really well, in your head, and then you watch the video or listen to it, and it's like, maybe, but I think more often, definitely what you're describing, where you're focused on all the things that didn't go quite according to plan, and you sort of then lose sight of the big picture.
Right.
So yeah, I love that on video, but it's so cool that you're able to make that happen just right there afterwards. Like while everyone is still fresh and present. And that also fixes the problem of how do you do the act turnover, as opposed to an MC coming out and sort of bantering for 5 or 10 minutes while props get shuffled. I love the idea of everyone realizing that this is sort of like a workshop experience,
Yeah.
That's
the
cool.
first one went really well. We had 7
awesome.
different performers. We're lining up to do it mid-April, so that'll be cool. But we're here to talk about our June performer, which is a special performance for a variety of reasons. One of which is one of the fun things with me running this, and full disclosure, this is not my career, booking magic. This is not my job. I'm not money focused on the front end. So it gives me the flexibility to build my audience and do good things. So one of the things that the whole thing at the new location started by my kid coming to me being like, Dad, we need to raise money for prom. Can you help? I said, okay, let's do this thing. So I called up Matt and said, hey, can you help? We lined up that first show back with Matt Donnelly the Thursday before he had shows in Red Bank. So he was already coming to the East Coast. It worked. Yeah. But we have a nonprofit that we are working with in June called Youth Empowerment Source. They are, if you look at any of the stuff about this show, you'll see links to them and descriptions of what they do. But basically, they are working with at-risk families to make sure that the kids that are part of those families don't get lost in the shuffle and fall into cracks and things like that. Their services range all the way up to adults that need classes for GEDs and things like that, and everywhere in between. Again, they have a direct pulse with the schools here in the county, so that when there are signs that there might be somebody that's in need of their help, they can engage ahead of time. A lot of their clientele are kids whose parents are incarcerated or are in and out of the system. And this is honestly, if you're interested in this sort of thing, they are a model to look at. Like, the federal government has kind of used what they're doing and are looking to expand that program into other places. And it's right here in Maryland, which is really cool.
Yeah, well, and what I love about them is that they really it really does seem like a sort of a holistic approach of like they don't their mission is to help kids in whatever sort of capacity that the kids need. I mean, and I love, obviously empowerment is a great term in there, but like there are so many other groups that are just sort of going down one like, all right, we're just going to focus on classes for folks, or we're just going to focus on meals, or we're just going to focus on foster and adoption sort of thing. But you get into a situation where every if all you have is a hammer, then every problem looks like a nail,
Right.
But I love the variety of services that they're able to offer to young people who might need some help, because it really can sort of be a one-stop shop. That way a school is able just to reach out to them and say, hey, we may need your help here. But then, youth empowerment services is able to come in and really change the life, or change that whole family, honestly. So yeah, I'm super excited to have them be a part of what we're going to be doing in June,
Yeah, and it's awesome to have, you have been on numerous times requested to have
Oh,
come
thank
back.
you.
So I was like, hey, let's do this. It's usually for us, full disclosures, usually more affordable for us to have somebody that we're not flying in. So, the benefit of you being able to do this at a rate that works with our being able to give money to the nonprofit is also cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I'm super looking forward to it. And a lot of people in the area have seen your show because you were here for, did you do 2 or 3? I don't even remember.
Yeah. So I did 2 and I looked it up. It was mid-February of 2022. So it will have been almost a year and a half since I was performing there. And yeah, I'm planning on, it's always hard. Like I've got so much stuff in my collection that I'm always trying to find that balance of, I always want to do new, like whatever I'm most excited about is whatever the new thing is. Right.
Right.
And so that on the one hand, that's what I really want to, be putting into shows as much as possible. But, I also have to remember that, there are things that I'm doing that, well, at least, 2 of them that have been on national television on Penn and Teller. And so people, even if they've seen a clip of it happening on TV, a lot of times if I omit that from a show, folks will be disappointed because they saw the clip, they thought I was going to do it. And, it's funny, just complete laziness. A lot of places it's hard or impractical for me to grab an electrical outlet easily. And so the light bulb trick that I did in November of 2022 on Penn and Teller, requires that I plug it into a wall. And so literally that's the first one to get cut if I'm going to be going somewhere and doing like a shorter show. But then I have people coming up saying, "Oh, I thought you were going to do the light bulbs." So the point is it'll be a blend of, if folks who came and saw the show that we did in February of last year, then they will get to see some different things, but also hopefully a few of the favorites that they had as well. And again, just like, I was in the audience for Donnelly's show, and you, especially with his show, I'm not putting us in the same category, but anytime you have an audience interaction that's happening, anytime you're bringing people up on stage, it's going to be a different show. And that was, I was in the audience for Donnelly and with my wife and a couple of friends. And she said, like, I don't care if he does the exact same tricks. It's going to be a different show because of how the people are reacting and responding. And so that's totally true in many cases with the sort of stuff that I'm bringing as well, where it's not just me going through the paces, but it is a bunch of interactive stuff that, guests are going to be coming up on the stage, and at least one person for pretty much everything I do, if not 2 or 3 or 4 people up on there. So I'm really, I think it'll be fun. Again, for folks who came before, please come back. But if you haven't had a chance to see some of the fun stuff that I get to do, then you'll get to see some sort of, signature stuff, if you will, or things you might have seen on TV,
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because that thought of, hey, if I do this thing in that place, as we are in the midst of submission time for the next season of it, my mindset in creating something right now that I'm working on that is just for that, I'm like, this can't just be for that.
Right.
because, and there are certainly factors that I'm taking into consideration as I'm developing this thing with the layout and where that will be shot and everything like that. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, there's always that, what will be the travel version of this?
Sure.
Because if it serves its purpose and it makes the phone ring or fills the email box with the, hey, we'd like to have you here, it's I would imagine, very difficult to show up having been booked off of something
Right.
and then not do the thing.
Yeah. Well, and also when I watch Fool Us and I see some of the acts on there, where the whole act kind of revolves around a big surprise moment at the end, and then once you've seen that, I feel like it's got to be tough. Then on the one hand, an audience, again, like you say, somebody who saw you on TV and wants to book you because they liked what they saw, will likely expect you to do that thing. But like at the same time, if there's a big turn or a twist at the end, then you run the risk that the audience has may have watched that clip and the sort of the ending is ruined.
Right.
So I was not thinking about that at all when I auditioned with stuff for the show, but I kind of lucked out in that both of the things that I'm sharing, that I've shared on the show, are interactive enough where it kind of like, okay, yeah, Allison Hannigan got a chance to do it, but now maybe you could try it when you come to the show. And it may be a different outcome depending on the person who's sort of interacting with the impossible stuff. And it's not like a big, I was thinking about the guy who did the awesome ventriloquist act where he has takes the top of his head off and a playing card is in his brain. And like, what a great ending to a TV trick. But that's definitely not something he's going to be doing at every event that he's, showing up at. Not only a crazy amount of special effects makeup, but also the fact that the ending is sort of spoiled for people who might have seen the clip. So yeah, just something I wasn't thinking about, but I got lucky in terms of the repeatability factor, I guess.
But there were also, so the first time that I saw you do the painting, the X-ray painting, was on Full Us.
Okay.
And it's my understanding that the changes between that and the way you do it on stage, and I'm not going to ruin this, I'm just going to tease this out there for folks, so hopefully you come and see the new stuff.
Sure.
It's a more immersive and more involved routine when you do it on stage. Was that no audience pandemic stuff that made you have to make those changes for Full Us?
And also timing, just the speed of things. There was, I started with a 7 or 8 minute routine that I liked in live shows, but then we had to literally cut that in half. So how can we speed things up? And one of the ways I can speed it up is unfortunately cutting out a bunch of jokes and sort of, I've got some sight gags in there that I'm a fan of, sort of, that are, again, fun for live show, but it's just, we got to keep it moving on TV. And then also, I would love to involve more people, but just the act of bringing people up and going from person to person, it's much more efficient, the version I did on TV just with Allison. So, but now what I'm doing in live shows is kind of a hybrid. Like I've pretty much gone back to the original way that I did it, but I got some great notes, in preparation for the TV thing. And those notes, have now continued into the live show. So it's definitely sort of an evolution, but yeah, you're right. It'll be a similar flavor to, it's the same basic plot of sort of this painting gives somebody X-ray vision, but it's not going to be there will be, it's sort of the deluxe edition, the director's cut that you'll get to see in June, as opposed to the sort of short version online.
So that will be June. Hold on. I just blanked on the date.
16th. Let me.
It's right behind me. 15th.
15th. There we go.
Thursday the 15th.
Yes. 7 p.m.
You're now on my poster wall twice.
Oh man, look at that. Thank you.
Yes. And thank you. So yeah, Thursday the 15th. Those tickets are obviously wherever you find out about Peter's public shows, but also on elktonmagic.com.
Yeah.
You will normally see 3 at least of our stage shows at a time that are once a month there, and probably by the time this comes out, there will be some other things, probably another one of those
Yeah.
open mic nights, and anything else that we have going on.
Yeah.
So
No, I'm excited. And so then I know there's also some special upgrade stuff. There's the basic ticket, which I guess is 35, but then, can you talk at all about, I know there's a VIP meet and greet, and then there's also, shirts that are special, like for this show
yes.
only, you know?
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
So we have special shirts for this because when I do something, I like to pour it on thick. So the show is actually called Elkton Magic Says Yes to the Impossible. So what happened? Just these ideas, they just come and they spring up out of just convenience maybe and coincidence, because it was that was not all put together when I asked you to do this show.
Right.
And when we linked you guys up with you and Yes together to make this thing happen. But then I was like, hey, we should design a shirt for this. And then it just all came into focus.
Yeah.
Which I'm hoping I have a similar epiphany with my fullest effect.
Right.
Because I'm in the weeds on some things there. But so we're going to be doing t-shirts. I urge everybody. So here's the deal. You could get those t-shirts one of two places. You can go on to elktonmagic.com now and click on the link to order those t-shirts. They are going to be less expensive there. You will get them sooner. But even though all of the money is going toward it, it's not that much money because it's through some third-party print-on-demand site. But I know some people want this stuff when they walk in the door and to wear it at the show. So if that is your desire, do that. If your desire is to help us maximize what money goes to the nonprofit, then either buy them at the show, although you won't necessarily be guaranteed quantity, or pre-order them. Every single penny from purchasing the Elkton Magic Says Yes to the Impossible t-shirt pre-purchased will go toward Yes.
Nice.
I am personally footing the cost to produce any of those shirts. So it will be 100% a donation to add on those shirts. You can buy as many as you want. I will email you back to just confirm sizes and everything like that. And those will be available at the show. So if you pre-order them, they will be given to you that night. For those who are also interested, you can get the first 2 rows of seating on a VIP option. Those tickets are $60, and that gets you early entry, front 2 rows of seating, which means you're probably going to be involved in at least what we just talked about with the X-ray vision.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually where you pull those people from, right?
Yep.
At least the director's cut extended version.
Definitely. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So an opportunity to be involved without having to necessarily be up on stage, if that's
yeah. No, I mean, I'm always
some people like that middle ground.
Right.
So
or if you want to sit there and definitely don't want to come up on stage, that's fine too. Like if you just want a great view, but don't want to, there's no guarantee. Like if I don't want to, I want to either way. You're a little more likely to be picked if you are in the front 2 rows. But at the same time, if you just want a close view and want to sit there, it's totally fine as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's 30 seats, and you are only doing an hour show. So
my buddy Willard uses 22 volunteers in a 45-minute set, which is always funny when I'm sharing the bill with him, and I'm like, is there anyone left for me? So yeah, it won't be quite 30, but yeah.
So even if we had Willard, you're not guaranteed.
It'd be fine. Yep, totally. Yeah. And cool. Dinner, right? I'm excited about the crab cakes, but there's a dinner like package sort of thing, right?
So so since we're doing this now at a restaurant, and it will be in season, so to speak, because it's a seafood restaurant, they're open seasonally. You can pre-purchase through our website if you wish. You're going to get a prefix menu, so that you'll get those selections and make those selections at the restaurant. Or since they're open regularly, you can either just call up and get reservations if you want to, and to make sure that there's no kind of jamming it up, or just show up ahead of time and you can get dinner there. They'll have the full menu open by the time we get to mid-June. So
yeah. Awesome. Well, yeah. So Thursday, June 15th, 7 p.m. showtime. Come early for dinner. And then, yeah, for all the information that folks need, for anyone watching this, I've got it up on the screen here, but the main website to go to for all of that is elktonmagic.com. So ELKTON magic.com. And that's where you can get not only show tickets, but if you want the VIP front row and or a shirt pre-ordered and or adding dinner onto it, you can do that. And then also I will have an opening act in one Judge Mentalist.
That's right.
So if you're curious about sort of following Jobeth's adventures as a psychic-ish person, mystery entertainer, social handle for that is psychic-ish. So PSYCHIC and then ISH on most of the social medias out there. And then also the website is judgementalist.com. And that way you can follow all of your adventures out there performing. But yeah, I'm super excited to be back there in June, and I can't wait to see a bunch of familiar faces and get a chance to see a bunch of folks who I have never met before. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Excellent.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on here, and again for the invite to back out to Elkton. And that is going to do it for this episode of the Podcast of the Impossible. But for any more information about some of the stuff that I'm working on, public shows, special events, and of course the Museum of the Impossible, you can head on over to oftheimpossible.com. That's Jobeth. I'm Peter. Thanks.